Get ready to alter all your preconceived ideas of Russian life. This is a country in the midst of an evolution, from old world traditions to modern conveniences. The old guard to free thinkers. This once communist society now has rich, poor, and most importantly, an upwardly mobile middle class. Almost everyone here can have a taste of the high life, especially when it comes to the food. After centuries of political and economic upheaval, the one constant for the Russian family has always been the cuisine. The wild card in all this has been the post-perestroika abundance. The meal still centers around meat and potatoes because they're the perfect comfort food for the long Russian winters. The St. Petersburg restaurants, well, it's an international city, so they still cater to young people, business types, and tourists. But if you ask any Russian, they'll tell you they still like to do things the old-fashioned way. My Russian rendezvous begins in the heart of St. Petersburg, with a grand market tour and a taste of the local street fair. Then, a short trip to the city limits for a classic family-style meal. After checking out St. Petersburg's most desired dishes, I catch a ride out into the countryside for a typical Russian weekend getaway. Throughout history, food has been both a source of comfort and strife for the Russians. There have been periods of time when food was not only scarce, but also of very poor quality. Today, it's another story. If you want your food very fresh, you go to a neighborhood farmer's market, and the most famous one in St. Petersburg is the Kuznechny market. Admittedly, St. Petersburg is not yet a tourist-friendly city. Most travelers come here for business, and they stay in fine hotels and eat in fine restaurants, which is great for them, but you know me. I'm always looking for more of a behind-the-scenes experience so I can really check out the food and the culture. To help me navigate this place, I'm meeting local tour guide Nikolai Devyatkin. This market's amazing.
Oh yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Nikolai has seen the country through its days of tyrannical oppression and the more recent eras of glasnost and democracy.
When the perestroika started, it was 1990. First time when we were in an American supermarket, my wife said that she wanted to cry because such an abundance of food, most unusual.
Today, you can see how free markets are having a positive effect on the food business, judging from the variety of products at this market. 12 types of ham, 24 types of dried sausage. This is incredible. At one point, though, you were lucky to see just one type of ham or one type of sausage.
Exactly. There was no any kind of brands. There was just a ham or a sausage. And it could be found not in every shop, but maybe 1 in 5.
In many countries, comfort foods are retro chic. In Russia, however, many of the traditional recipes and food styles have never gone out of fashion. I think we ought to try the terrine that's made with the pistachios and the tongue over there. Ah, beautiful. All the different pieces of the body are represented. You have meat from the legs or the hams, the tongue, the jowls, and the nose. And all those little bits in there around the pistachios are from different parts of the head. That white line there is the ear. And then it's all rolled in gelatin and cooked. Cheers.
Okay, cheers.
Oh. Wow, that is fantastic.
Very good.
Oh, I could spend all day snacking at the meat counter, but I want to see what else is here. Only in Russia, a display of everything pickled. Russians pickle many foods because for centuries they only had about 4 months to harvest enough food for a long, dark winter. Pickling makes perishables last longer. The practice continues today, and the selection is mind-boggling.
Those are freshly cured tomatoes. And the second type is called the bull's heart. It's a different type. It's more meaty.
Oh my gosh, spectacular. Still very firm, still retains all the characteristics you would associate with a vine-ripened tomato, and yet all of the herb and vinegar and chili flavors have penetrated with that garlic into the tomato. That's incredible. Note the 3 types of pickled garlic. Plain, garlic soaked in beet juice for a little added taste and color, and here's something unique, wild garlic.
Would you like to try this one?
Yeah, it's very...
And for comparison, this is the old one. So compare the young one and the old one. The young one is much better.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and look at that. You can see the difference. Those are very thin and very tender, and those ones are thicker and a little more fibrous. I just can't pass by this counter without dipping nose first into the sauerkraut.
Just freshly cured. This is for Russian vodka as a snack.
I could eat a whole bowl of that. Now this is worth the trip. Russian pickles, some cured in salt, some in vinegar, both with fresh dill. Oh. I love that. And you just have that intense salty garlic dill flavor in the little ones. Pickling is such an art. When it's done the right way, it absolutely transforms the characteristics of what's been pickled, yet at the same time retaining the essence of it. I mean, if you can do those two things at the same time, it's a masterpiece. It's like making wine. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I feel like a kid in a candy store. I'm surrounded by so many different meats, fish, vegetables. Everywhere I turn, there's a payoff. The Russians use honey for everything from homeopathic remedies to sweetening tea. The varieties here reflect the flowers, plants, and trees that the bees have pollinated. Sunflower, buckwheat, and my first choice, linden.
Yes.
That's my favorite. That's not even close. That tastes like berries. That's just extraordinary.
Forest flowers, honey.
Oh my gosh. Look at this. Fresh forest flower honey. Wow. This tastes so much different. It's got a almost woodsy taste to it because you have all those natural chemicals secreted by the bees to make the combs. This is amazing. I've got to take some of this honey with me, wax and all.
She recommends to chew it properly because bee wax is very useful and it contains the vitamins A and E, which are very healthy for the body.
That's the only reason I'm doing this is for health concerns. The Russians are also known for their phenomenally rich dairy products, from fat-laden cheeses and sour cream to this super thick cream.
Like it?
We don't have stuff like that back where I'm from.
Тоже хороший продукт, но такого нет.
That is extraordinary.
Очень.
Wow. Just about everything in this market is unusual in some way or another. Cucumbers, with the flower still attached. Exotic melons from Azerbaijan. Sturgeon and salmon caviar. Isn't that nice?
Like amber.
It is. And the selection of cured fish is, to say the least, incredible. Oh, yeah. And there it is, something I've wanted to try for years. Vobla. That's dried herring with an extra bonus. The dried egg sac still intact inside the fish. So, after all of that work, fillet of Vobla, and then the real magic here, which is the egg sac, salted, dried, and pressed. This looks kind of scary, I have to tell you.
Oh, it's good. You will like
It's like
it.
the potato chips or pretzels of Russia. Everyone, when you're drinking
Yes,
beer,
more or less,
this is what
like-
you have. All right, tough guy.
Okay.
Yeah, there
Thank
you
you.
go. Oh, it's bitter like iodine is bitter. Oh. Bitter, salty, awesome. The Kuznetsny market offers a great sampler platter for what's available these days in modern Russia. Nikolai, I gotta tell you, this is gonna be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Next on Bizarre Foods, Russia's idea of fast food. The advantage of visiting St. Petersburg in July is that the sun only dips past the horizon for a couple of hours. This phenomenon is called the white nights, and the amphetamine effect on the psyche keeps the action hopping at all hours. No matter when you cruise along the Never River or stroll past the famous architecture, landmarks, and museums, like the Hermitage, the city's main street is always busy. For those who live and work here, during the day they rely on fast food or street food for their meals. Now, if you have a preconceived notion about what street food or fast food in Russia is all about, well, their notion of takeaway treats may surprise you. Increased tourism, the dramatic ascent of a moneyed superclass, and the loosening of the economic system have created a huge demand for many types of restaurants in St. Petersburg. But for the average Russian, everyday food is still a traditional experience. One of the most popular fast food restaurants in the city is Utoshi na Blinak, a Russian cafeteria-style restaurant that serves up some classic favorites. Now, it's a good thing this is a cafeteria-style restaurant and you just grab a tray and go, because I'm having a dickens of a time figuring out the menu. Cafeterias are common here, specializing in Russian comfort food that's inexpensive and plentiful. I start with some traditional salad fixings and then head straight for my favorite part of the cow. Yeah, let's try a little piece of the tongue. And some fried fish with a little garlic and dill sauce. Ah, thank you very much. Spasiba. Not to miss the Russian staple, borscht. There are dozens of varieties in this country. Hot, cold, sweet, spicy. This is kind of better than a drive-through with the local pump and munch, don't you think? A little fried fish. Careful for those little bones. A little garlic and dill sauce with sour cream.
Wow. That's incredible. Super fresh. Look at that potato salad with those beautiful little wild mushrooms. This is a fast food restaurant. You don't think the Russians take their food seriously? Wow. I'm dying to try the cold borscht.
It's a classic summer's version. Cold beet puree with cucumbers, sour cream, salted cabbage, and dill. Now, while all types of borscht include cabbage, the other ingredients can vary, ranging from vegetables to meats, even liquids such as milk.
Oh, this is spectacular. I'm telling you, one thing I'm going to miss when I leave here, that Russian sour cream. Forget about it.
Cow's tongue is a very typical Russian dish, economical, and it's got great flavor.
The Russians love their tongue, and this nice thick poached slice is a really good example of how finely grained this meat is. If you like brisket, if you like pot roast, and you haven't tried tongue, you don't know what you're missing. Don't think about it, just eat it. I've eaten this stuff in some of the finest French restaurants in Europe, and I've not had its equal. This is extraordinary. Oh.
I'd love to stay, but I have a lot of food browsing still on my to-do list. Now, this is something you don't see many places in the world. This vendor is setting up what appears to be a miniature street-side beer garden. It's not like people drink booze all day here. This barrel of bubbly is called kvass, a low-alcohol, beer-type drink popular throughout Russia and Slavic Europe. It's made by fermenting water with rye or pumpernickel bread. The Russians consider it so tame that they've nicknamed it children's beer.
I wonder who's serving the children's vodka.
It's considered to be the most consumed beverage in all of Russia. People drink it throughout the day. And why not? It's filling, has a small protein content, and is pretty inexpensive at about 25 cents a glass. Now, ask what the most popular street food is in this city, and most locals point you to the nearest blini stand. There's practically one on every corner.
Sweet blinis on the top that range in price from, about $1 to about $1.50. $2 will get you one of any half a dozen to a dozen types of savory blini, stuffed with herring, ham and cheese, chicken, pork, wild mushrooms and cream.
When in Russia, you gotta go with the herring. Blinis have been around for centuries, known originally as blintzes or blins, essentially a meal to go. Blinis were supposedly once left on windowsills for people who are in need of food. Now, they're the #1 fast food in town.
And where does one eat street food? Well, on the street, of course. Wow. Everything in Russia that isn't sweet or meaty is really salty and really fishy. But with a nice pancake like this, it's kind of perfect.
These filled crepes come with a lot more options than the usual fast food we have at home. When the cooks here found out that I was a chef, they invited me inside to try my hand at blini making.
Wow, this is awesome. Small. Clean the... Not bad for my first time.
Controlling the batter is harder than it looks.
Ooh. Oh. Uh-oh.
Жарится.
All right. Pujaritsa. That means leave it alone, wise guy. Ooh. Thank you. Thanks.
Blinis are easy to eat on the run, especially in the winter. And for just a few rubles, you get a pretty healthy meal. I'd say the Russians have this one figured out.
Coming up next, a trip to the countryside and a little bit of bear to go with the balalaika. It's beautiful.
St. Petersburg is the 3rd largest city in Europe, right behind Moscow and London. Named after Peter the Great, it was the capital of the Russian Empire for more than 200 years. Although that status changed after the Russian Revolution of 1917, it's still a thriving European cultural center. One of the premier sites is the Catherine the Great Palace on the southeast side of the city. The grounds have been a favorite gathering place for artists and poets for centuries. And right next door, another social center for my favorite art form. This traditional log home, or izba, is an authentic Russian-style restaurant. If you have a wedding, a family celebration, or other festive event, this is where you go. Podvorye.
Добро пожаловать, пойдемте.
Podvorye is a rare breed. a restaurant popular with tourists and food authenticity-obsessed freaks like me. This kind of dining experience should be shared with others, so I hound my way into the nearest empty seat, which just so happens to be in the middle of a table of French vacationers. The food comes family style, but I bet I'll be the only one sampling the bear and an odd little fish called a lamprey.
When Russians come out to eat in a restaurant, it's always a celebration, including some pretty hefty musical entertainment.
Russian folk music adds the ambiance throughout the meal, which in this case is a multi-course arrangement, beginning with pickles and tomatoes and a dish of salo, sliced cured pork fat that's eaten here like cold cuts and smeared on bread.
In most other parts of the world, when they serve cured fat, they shave it paper thin, but the Russians are hearty folks, and big slab of pork fat is sort of de rigueur at a Russian meal. Wow. It's like bacon without the meat.
Next up, the gnarly-looking lamprey. They're mud-dwelling predators that feed off the blood of a host fish. Historically, lampreys were peasant food, popularized when Russians couldn't afford anything else. Supposedly, it helps to pickle them.
It's really just a slender little eel, so we're going to take out that center bone. I've had a lot of pickled and cured fish in my life. That's just one of the worst I've ever tasted. The lamprey itself has sort of an ammoniated, sort of spoiled flavor that just won't go away, no matter how much salt you put on it. And all of the curing that takes place and the pickling that takes place with it just leaches all the fat and all the moisture out of the flesh of the fish itself. So what's left behind is a very tough, salty, pickled, ammoniated piece of nasty fish. One thing that I can say definitively about pickled Russian lamprey, it's not good.
I'm ready for the main dish, brown bear. The chef prepares it like meatloaf. He starts with ground brown bear meat, adds an egg, some horseradish and sour cream, minced garlic, and a mixed game spice with coriander and juniper. He places the patty on a hot skillet and fries it like a burger. While I wait for the main entree, I remember my manners and offer some of my food to my fellow diners.
Look, if you want to try the lamprey and the salo, would you like to try it?
They balk now, but wait until they see the bear.
Ooh. Almost every country in the world features some kind of game in its national cuisine. And here in Russia, bear is very, very plentiful. So a bear steak is something that you find on almost every menu.
The bear patty is served with sauté of mushrooms and onions and a little bit of lingonberry sauce.
It kind of looks like bear Salisbury steak. It reminds me of something that I used to have in the high school cafeteria at lunch. A little bit fatty, a little bit greasy, a little bit gamey, but all in all, quite tasty. It's got that same kind of rich, minerally aftertaste that you associate with very large animals. Would you like to try some? Right? Not bad. You want to try some? Yeah.
But Vourier does not disappoint. Russian folk music, period costumes, the food of the czars and the peasants, and some great camaraderie.
You guys are the best.
Coming up, one of the world's most delectable delicacies, and later, a trip to the country for more than a little bit of R&R. Taking in the sights of St. Petersburg, you can't help but notice similarities between this city and a famous Italian port city. Nicknamed the Venice of the North, St. Petersburg is actually situated on dozens of individual islands with hundreds of bridges drawing all the pieces together. It's a spectacular puzzle featuring some of the finest architectural styles of the 17th and 19th centuries. And when it comes to exquisite hotels, well, this is the jewel in Europe's crown.
This is the Grand Hotel Europe, one of the world's great luxury hotels and a national landmark.
Everything about this hotel is indeed grand. The marble floors, stained glass, even the furniture and artwork. All of it is authentic and true to the hotel's 1875 roots, blended in with all the creature comforts of the modern era. Every room here tells a story, according to hotel manager Thomas Knoll.
Yeah, this is our famous billiard room, not because we play billiard here anymore nowadays, but a lot of famous meetings are happening in this room. I would say it's probably the most secure meeting room in town.
The hotel is not just a business destination, but is also one of the finer places to dine in this city. They're renowned for their signature handmade chocolates, their extensive vodka selection, award-winning Cuban cigars, but it's my desire to indulge in one of the world's great delicacies that brings me here. What better place to start than in the kitchen? The chef is whipping up one of his signature dishes, called an egg in egg. He mixes in fresh cream, pepper, salt, and chives, sort of a deviled egg concoction, and then spoons it back into the cleaned shell.
Oh, wow.
And then, voila, the Russian caviar.
That is beautiful. Oh, my Lord. The nice thing is that the quality of the eggs are as good as the quality of the caviar. Wow.
Caviar is Russia's most revered culinary contribution to the world. For hundreds of years, the deep, cold seas surrounding this country have provided excellent breeding grounds for the sturgeon fish. These large fish are the source of the quality roe, or eggs, that once salted become caviar. As a result, caviar is considered an international symbol of culinary elitism, and people come to St. Petersburg for the privilege of tasting it. The Grand Hotel's Caviar Bar is the most well-known in the city, and as the largest consumer of sturgeon roe in St. Petersburg, it's the only establishment allowed to open each and every can and taste it before they buy it.
How long ago was this processed?
I would say not more than 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
The fish was still in the water of this caviar.
Wow.
It's very fresh, you can see it, you can smell it, it still has the smell of the sea, basically. This has much less salt in it.
Oh, and it does. It smells like rocks on the beach.
Yeah.
Just glorious.
I believe the Caviar Bar is calling my name.
Now, in the finest caviar restaurant in St. Petersburg, prices range from almost $200 an ounce for the best beluga caviar to almost $100 an ounce for the best Sevruga caviar. But when in St. Petersburg, it's usually a good idea to go with the tasting plate.
The tasting plate features the salted fish roe from 3 different species of sturgeon. The Sevruga, the smallest and most abundant sturgeon, the Osetra, a larger fish featuring a nutty flavor, and the largest and most prized of all, the beluga. The latter is an endangered species in many other places around the world. The fish can live to be 100 years old, but females only start producing eggs after age 20. I've ordered a ½ ounce of each caviar, measured precisely at the table. The waiter suggests a garnish of egg yolks and whites, a dab of sour cream, and several blinis, Russia's version of the crepe. I'm eating the portions from right to left, from the smallest sized eggs to the largest, allowing myself to build up to the beluga caviar. So I start with the Sevruga.
You're welcome, sir.
A little blini and a little dollop of sour cream. Here goes. The Sevruga's briny. It's very, very mild and not half as salty as any other Sevruga I've ever eaten in my entire life. Extremely high quality, very, very fresh. All right, on to the Osetra, which generically speaking is my favorite caviar. And if you look very closely, you can see that golden green fish oil that came out of those eggs. That's how rich and divinely decadent Osetra caviar can be. That's a sign of very high quality. A much bolder flavor, a much nuttier finish. That's really awesome. It's like concentrated essence of the ocean. I like that. All right. And now, a little bit of the beluga caviar. God, look at how gorgeous the egg structure is on that. Hello, boys. The quality of the flavor of that beluga was absolutely incredible. A much more assertive flavor than the other caviars. Bigger, bolder, not necessarily saltier, just more of a pure sort of fish egg flavor. It really is an indescribable and singular taste. Ooh, this is good.
I I think the most appropriate way to end this decadent evening is a trip to the lobby bar and a taste of one more Russian classic, beef stroganoff. Created in late 19th century Russia, authentic beef stroganoff is a ragu of beef, onions, and sour cream.
Braised beef, caramelized onions, sour cream. This is hearty. When you're riding across the Russian steppes during a cold, hard winter, this is what you want to fortify yourself with.
This has been one rich eating experience at the Grand Hotel Europe. Coming up, grilling mystery meat at the Dasha. That's code for one crazy cookout. St. Petersburg is like no other city in Russia. At the turn of the 18th century, Peter the Great hired many of Europe's top architects, engineers, and businessmen to create the cosmopolitan city. Those efforts angered Russian nobility at the time, yet St. Petersburg continued to flourish into one of the country's major trade gateways and financial centers. Progress is everywhere in this city of nearly 5 million, so it's understandable that Russians like to flee the urban hustle and bustle for a weekend of fresh air and camaraderie every now and then.
St. Petersburg is a beautiful city, but it's still a city. And so I'm off for a day in the country with my friend Andre and his buddies. We're headed to a Dasha, a Russian country house, for a little bit of R&R.
Andrei Terabinin's family Dasha is about a 2-hour drive with numerous distractions along the way, like these roadside stands where travelers stop to pick up food for the weekend. Andrei will be doing a lot of the cooking, so we pull over when we see a few of his favorite stands to pick up some supplies.
Zucchini, potatoes, cucumbers. Wow.
Real good.
And look at the mushrooms. Look at this one.
Old, but he's fresh.
Yeah. It's as big as my hand.
Russians enjoy their mushrooms. Many children are taught at an early age how to distinguish the poisonous ones from those that are safe to eat.
Those are my favorite.
Yes.
We call them golden chanterelles. And the nice thing is, look at how beautiful and what great shape they are. They're still really fresh around the edges and really fresh there. These are beautiful.
And this mushroom's very simple. You don't need to
Exactly.
pick it up. You
Exactly.
just put potatoes with the mushroom together, cooking. It's in 20 minutes you have dinner.
Yeah.
For a very modest 100 rubles,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
we get our vegetables. Russians have their own addiction to outdoor cookery, and they love a meaty entree called shashlik, skewers of marinated meat, perfect for grilling.
So is this where we buy the meat?
Andre tells me this meat shack has been here for 30 years. Take a look at this place. There's not much refrigeration. It's tough to distinguish what's what, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on out back.
So this is just a little country market for meat?
Yes, for meat, fish, onion, rabbit.
Do they cut meat for the
But
shashlik?
this is really ready. You just put on the...
Oh, wow.
They cook fresh fish,
Uh-huh.
and they smoke.
Is very popular with people in this area?
Very popular. It's simple, but very strong guys come
Yeah.
here. They buy meat, not in the supermarket.
Right.
Only here, because it's on the road. It's very good always.
They've got everything here for the entire Dasha experience, including the banya, an unusual sauna ritual that often takes place after dinner and a big meal.
I love this.
For sauna.
What do you mean it's for sauna?
We use it in the sauna.
Yeah.
We put in the hot water. It
Yeah.
became. We put when you're in the sauna. In the
Oh,
bath.
you beat each other
Yes,
with
yes.
it. Oh, yeah.
So they produce everything for your good evening to spend good weekend in the dacha.
So this is like one-stop shopping for
Yes.
Dasha happiness.
Minimum, but exactly right. What do you
Yeah.
need?
Food
Food.
and whips.
Yes.
These bunches of dried birch or oak leaves, once soaked in warm water, take on a supple stiffness and are used like an exfoliating brush. One thing about the meat here, you never quite know what you're getting. This looks like pork that's been pre-seasoned for easy skewering. We also pick up some smoked trout, a staple in this area.
You put in the different bags because it smells and
Yeah.
in the car. It's
Oh, I
for
bet.
the city.
It's the same all over the world, my friend. One bad fish can spoil a whole car ride. All right. Спасибо.
Спасибо.
The scenery along the way reminds me of the lake country back home in Minnesota.
Oh, wow. This is beautiful.
You're having.
Beautiful.
The Terabinin's Dasha is pretty plush by Russian standards. It can be used year-round, has acreage for a large garden, and butts up to a lake. Former Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev started the dasha trend in the 1950s as a way to soften the pressure on the Russian food system. Some people still rely on their gardens for the food to get them through the long winter. Andrei's mother, Natasha, is here for the weekend, too, and gives me a tour of the place, including the second-generation garden, filled with a large variety of vegetables and fruits.
Gooseberries?
Крыжовенное варенье.
Beautiful. Look at that.
Meanwhile, Andrei is preparing for the banya, which takes a while to heat up to nearly 110 degrees. Oh, yes, and he wants to make sure the oak leaves are ready, too, for that special whisking. Guests often take part in the meal prep.
I don't want to get too arty and have Andrei get ticked off at me.
A typical Russian barbecue begins with zakuski, small bites of appetizers, which today features a relish tray with cold vegetables and plenty of pickles.
So how often do you come up here with friends?
My friends, they really like to come here. They always push me to, Andrei, let's go to country house. Stop to clubbing in the city.
Well, of course, because you've got the kick-ass country palace.
Andrei's friends, Natasha, Yevgeny, and Nadia, have come to join the party. And like most barbecues, this one is all about the food. Mainly the shashlik. Just as the meat starts to cook, there's a sudden downpour.
Вина принесите.
While everyone runs for cover,
You got the fish?
I'm thinking, can this dinner be saved? And hey, what about the banya? Coming up, the saga continues. Some more smoking, steaming, and finally some whisking. Hello, welcome to the banya. St. Petersburg, Russia is known as a center of culture and commerce. But travel a few hours out of town and you're in Dasha country. I'm constantly reminded that no matter where you go in the world, there are certain things that just happen. Like, as soon as you get the outdoor grill going, the rain starts.
So what do you think? You guys think the rain's going to pass? It looks pretty light over there.
We called it some mushrooms rain. It's for mushrooms.
Oh, yeah.
After this day, they push.
Mushroom rain. That's nice. I like that.
That's great for the mushrooms, but the rest of us are ready to eat now. This is one traditional Russian barbecue.
Very nice. I've wanted to try this all day long.
Radishes, onions, boiled potatoes, mushrooms sautéed to perfection, freshly smoked lake trout.
Look at that. It's beautiful. Spectacular. Delicious.
And of course, the shashlik showpiece. Only thing missing, the quintessential Russian tipple.
A little more vodka. There's eating, there's drinking, there's carrying on.
The shashlik is tender and juicy with a deep natural pork flavor that you don't find in many places anymore.
Wow, this is awesome.
What's the best way to relax after a big meal? Sweat it off, of course. It's banya time.
For the banya.
За баню.
Sharing a small hot room with a few near-naked people may seem slightly strange to some of you, but I'm game. In the simplest of terms, the banya is like a sauna. The purpose is health-related, and the exchange of temperature extremes we're about to experience is said to improve your circulation.
Can you feel it? It's a little hot in here.
It's my very first time, so we're staying in for only 5 minutes.
Ah, okay. What's with the hat?
It helps for my hair, not to be very hot.
Oh.
And now for the flagellation. Doesn't that sound delightful?
You make wine.
Yeah.
Very
With
hot.
this, it became hot. You feel it?
Oh, my God.
More hot.
Yeah.
After you, little bit.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. It gets everything sort of moving.
Yeah.
I like
Circulation of blood.
Yeah. This is nice. This is nice.
Yes, it's nice, but
It would be nicer when you go out and when you go to the lake.
No, I'm not going in the lake.
No.
The lake is cold.
not cold. We're swimming.
This is two things, yes. The first thing, banya, and then is cold water.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because banya without cold water, it doesn't work.
You mean
For your health.
Oh, I see.
We don't joke.
Oh, yeah, believe me. I don't. In Russia, you don't joke about banya.
I guess in Russia, you don't joke about swimming in cold water either.
We are steaming.
Yes.
Woo! Oh, that is nice. I've done a lot of cool things in my life. Today was one of the coolest. That is awesome. That is awesome.
As the curtain falls on this idyllic Russian white night, I now understand why the Dasha and Vanya experience is such a precious commodity. No frills, no pretense, no vanity, just pure pleasure. While the St. Petersburg food scene has received quite an upgrade over the last few years, tradition still rules. Food shortages are a recent memory, so nothing here is wasted, but the food is anything but boring. From the stalls of the Kuznechny market to the hundreds of restaurants and cafes that line the city streets, simple sandwiches to hearty meat dishes, St. Petersburg's cuisine is at the crossroads of substance and style.
And that's an exciting place to be. So until next time, do as I do. If it looks good, eat it.